Good day and greetings from the Great White North. My name is Prickly Poo and welcome to day 208 of A Year of Change. There are certain things that we kind of take for granted. One of which is that hospitals sort of lead the charge when it comes to health. There's a news story today that I saw. And depending on when you're watching this may have progressed a little further. This may have not. I'm hoping it does. Where there's a series of hospitals in Ontario that are apparently starting this up that are sort of leaning away from the sort of horrible processed food that we all know and love from hospitals, and moving towards something that's a little better for the patients. It's one of those things that you don't really think of. We all know that hospital food is pretty bad, depending on what hospital you go to anyway. But it's one of those things that you kind of take for granted that it's going to be at least nutritious. And starting out badly already. But apparently what had happened was sort of jumping ahead here. There's even in the hospital that is in the city I'm in, when you first go in, right in the main lobby, there's a Tim Hortons, which is like a Dunkin' Donuts sort of thing. It's just a donut chain. And although it's pretty much the only place you can go in the city where the coffee tastes, not burned from Tim Hortons, because they measure everything out and they've got to keep filtered water in and they have to sort of keep the standards up. It just never sort of dawns on you that it's an odd thing to have at a hospital. Because you don't associate that with the donuts and the Danishes and everything else. And I'm sure that they do have them in there. I don't really know. But it's not an unheard of thing. There are fast food places that are in hospitals. There are not chain restaurants, but little franchises all throughout them. And in this story, they were talking about all these different hospitals in Ontario that are actually starting to phase those out and to bring in healthier options. And at first, it looks like it's just for the cafeteria, which you're kind of like, in schools, it's one thing. Taking out unhealthy options and putting in healthy options in schools is sort of a no-brainer, that these are kids. They don't really have the wherewithal to make those decisions yet. So, yes, you kind of need to make those decisions for them and say, no, we aren't going to serve you crap all day, every day. We're going to serve you healthy stuff. But when it comes to adults, although it's nice to have those options, it's one of those things that, yeah, but you should have not option. What word am I looking for? You should have the option, I guess, of eating poorly if you want. Couldn't think of the word. So when they're going to start phasing these out, but it's not just the cafeteria. It's not just the employees that are going through this. This is actually right throughout the hospital, and a lot of this actually went to the patients as well. And when they start sort of mapping out what the hospitals are going to be taking out, deep fryers are in there, microwavable foods, like ready-made meals and stuff like that, things like macaroni and cheese and, just all the stuff that you really sort of look at and go, that's really odd for a hospital to be promoting. And I understand that they've got, hundreds, if not thousands of patients that they need to feed every single day, multiple times per day. So a lot of it is going to be a bit easier. But you do sort of think, well, you're a hospital. You should really be promoting a lot more healthy options for patients. So this actually is going to go across the board. They're looking at taking out things like soda vending machines that are in hospitals, just because if you want it, you can go outside the hospital and get it. But basically their thought process is that when you're in the hospital, then you really should be getting the healthiest options that you can. So the thing that really struck me was the fact that they're taking out deep fryers, and you don't really associate that with hospital food to begin with. I certainly never have. But it's, yes, patient, if you're in there for whatever reason, not just heart attacks and things like that, but whatever reason you're in there for, they should really be promoting that more than anywhere else. You can go to a dietitian and things like that and say, okay, well, in health food stores or restaurants and things like that, that's fine. You can sort of promote that there. But in a hospital, they really should be sort of setting the stage for it. and saying, no, this is how you should be eating all the time. Once you're out of here, if you want to go back home and finish eating, all the stuff that you ate before, that's fine. But while you're here, then they should be really promoting it and saying, this is how healthy people should be eating. Proper portion sizes, that's another thing. Cutting back on high calorie drinks. There's a whole slew of different things that they're going to be looking at. And the weird thing is the reaction from people isn't all positive. Which, in a way, I can sort of understand, because people are saying, no, I'm an adult, I want to be able to eat whatever I want. Which is fine, you can. But it really, I think, is important, especially for a hospital or any healthcare professional, to try to promote that healthy aspect as much as they possibly can. If you're still getting stuff from a hospital saying, no, it's just frozen pizza, well, then you're not going to sort of make that leap and think, oh, well, hospitals are feeding me unhealthy foods. They are sort of trying to extend it out to the cafeteria as well. I just use cafeteria loosely as basically saying places that employees can go. And that's one of those things that you think, they have a really, really hard job. They're working, anywhere between 10 and 24 hours in a day. And really they should be allowed to eat whatever they want. And I kind of agree with that. But if you're trying to set an example, if you're trying to sort of lead the charge for health, then it is important, I think, to say that, we're offering this. And I think at the onset, they aren't just going to be saying, good, we're throwing out all the other stuff. Because, they have agreements with franchises and suppliers and everything else, and they still need to honor those, and gradually phase those out. So this isn't something that they're just going to say, good enough starting today, we're getting rid of everything. But I think there's just going to start sort of bringing in fresher foods and trying to promote healthier eating and increase the amount of fruits and vegetables and things like that, and get away from the processed stuff and those shitty little meat pucks that they pass for food. And I think just sort of, I don't know if a lot of it is, these are voluntary, by the way. This isn't something that the government has said, no, you need to do this because you need to get away from all the deep fried foods and everything else. This is a series of hospitals that, in the healthcare system that are voluntarily doing this. There's a whole list of them. So I think it's a very, very good thing. But it's one of those things that when you're reading it, you're thinking, have they not been doing this entire time? It seems so odd that of all the places to do this, hospitals are sort of behind McDonald's. I use that. Like, McDonald's sort of puts in their healthy options. We've looked at those before. They're better in some ways, but in general, you might as well have the burger. But they just sort of say, well, these are healthier. No, they're really not. If you look at one aspect of it and say, well, yes, these are, you can do the same thing with anything, really. You can say, well, these are, this whole wheat bread is healthier than white bread. Well, there's whole wheat in it, but you've dumped in twice as much sugar. There's, more sodium in it. So, it is a bit of a balancing act, but sort of getting off topic here. Having these voluntarily sign up for this, I think is a good thing, but it seems so weird that it hasn't happened before. And when you look at sort of the different steps that they're saying, well, here's what we have for an idea. Again, the big one is taking out deep fryers. You're thinking, what? Like, I understand, again, just sheer volume of food that needs to be prepared. You try to make it as easy and as cheap as possible, especially in Canada, because we don't really pay for anything here. We have our taxes that pay for it, but it's not the same as going into, a privately run hospital and saying, well, I'm going to have this and this and this, and, it's taken care of. They do need to save as much money as they can, so part of that is buying the cheap, tasteless meals. But the fact that they're trying to prioritize the nutritional aspect of it as well, I think is a really, really good thing. And there aren't too many hospitals right now. Right now, this is just a sort of a group in Ontario that are doing this, but hopefully it's going to catch on if they find that it does sort of promote that positive aspect and saying, of all places, then, yes, we should be the ones that are sort of setting the stage and saying, this is how you should be eating. If for no other reason than to, put that out there, because let's face it, if all of us started eating healthy and eating proper portions and proper amounts and increasing the amount of fruits and vegetables that we had and cutting back on all the processed food. Basically, if everyone started doing what we've been doing over the past few months, then it would help the healthcare system. And whether it's privately owned or, a public healthcare system like we have here, you're going to have fewer visits in there because just in general, people's health is going to improve. It's not going to save billions of dollars a year, but it's going to help. And especially where, it's a hospital, they really should have been doing this quite a while ago. Not to be one of those people that, as soon as someone does something good, well, why didn't you do this years ago? Well, fuck off, I'm doing it now. So, but it did sort of surprise me because it's something that you don't really think of, that, fast food places have put in their healthy options, as they call them. Grocery stores have always sort of had like the little diner area where they have salads and things like that. And restaurants are doing it and everywhere else is doing it. And then hospitals still have that sort of airline quality food, I should say. And it just, I don't know, it's one of those things that never really occurred to me until I read this story, which I think is a very good thing. So, anyway, that was it. It's just one of those things that sort of struck me as kind of odd. I know that these are more, Thursdays are sort of a science-y, breakthrough kind of news thing. This isn't really one of those things. It is a news story, so that kind of counts. But I'm hoping, though, that this is going to spread and that more hospitals are going to get on board. And even if it's just to get it so that, patients are a little more educated when they're going out than when they're coming in. I mean, obviously, this isn't for, terminally ill patients that are going in and never going to be coming out. But I think, in general, it's just a very positive thing to start. And of all the places, having hospitals do it, I think, has a little more clout to it than having a fast food restaurant do it. So maybe it will help in the long run. At the very least, I don't know if this is sort of a matter of conscience that they're doing, but I think it's a very, very good thing that they're starting in. So, bravo. I'm going to leave a link in the description below to the story so you can go in, take a quick look at it. And they've also given a list of the hospitals that are starting to do this. So I think it's really good, that it's one of those things that where these people are sort of leading the charge, that they get recognized for it. Because again, this is a voluntary thing. This isn't a matter of the government saying you need to cut off your suppliers and start serving proper foods. We've had too many complaints and things like that. This is something that this group of hospitals have gotten together and said, we really need to do something. And it's going to take a long time because they need to phase out the agreements that they have with their current suppliers, or they need to adapt them. They need to find new suppliers. They need to find something that's going to be economically viable for them as well. And keep that practical aspect of it, saying, yes, we would like to get rid of all this stuff and start things immediately, but it's going to take time. It's going to take money. But in the long run, when it comes to patients' health and employees' health as well, I think the employee aspect is going to be more of a, we're offering these options. You can still have your regular stuff. But for patients, I think it's going to be a little bit more along the lines of, the vast majority of what we're serving you, no matter what you order, you're going to get something that's healthy for you. It's going to be nutritious. And not just that it's going to be, cauliflower in place of rice and, hot lemon water and weak tea and a non-flavored tomato soup. It's what they're looking at is, again, that practical aspect of it, that if your patients aren't going to eat it, there's no point in it being healthy because they still need that nutrition to get into them. So you need to make it palatable. You need to make it, something that is going to benefit everybody. But I'm going to put a list up as well of the hospitals that are in there. It's a link to the list of the hospitals that are just sort of starting this out right away. And like I say, it's a small group of hospitals in Ontario, but I'm really hoping that it's going to sort of spread out. And I think it's a good thing that they're starting this out. So that's it. I'm going to keep this one very short because the past few videos have been quite long all the way through. But yeah, that's it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else related to this. I don't think there is. So anyway, I'll put a link for the story. You can take a look at that as well as the list. And go up, take a look, and hopefully for any of you that are watching in Ontario, this is going to be a hospital that you're going to be familiar with, and, you can put your opinion in there as well. Some of the comments actually in the story, because it does open it up, it's from CBC, and they, some of the people's comments are a little weird. There's a couple that just go directly against what common sense and science would tell you. There are others that are complaining and saying, no, I want to be able to eat whatever I want, because they're having a tantrum like a 5-year-old. They aren't sort of seeing the realistic aspect of it. It's just saying, yes, we understand you have these choices. You're allowed to eat what you want, but we're promoting this. And I think that sort of gets lost in there. So, as always, when you're looking at a news story or a YouTube video, take the comments with a grain of salt because it's just one of those things that you're going to get a whole mixture of weird ones in there. So you can skip those if you want, or you can comment. Either way, it'll be good. Anyway, I'm going to leave this video here. So thank you very much for watching. If you liked it, please poke the like button for me. In the meantime, keep yourself warm and fuzzy, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.